Journey of process. Process is 50% of the PMP exam, and that is the biggest domain in the exam. If you can master this 50% of the exam, you can of course clear PMP exam. So when we talk about process, it actually consists each and everything in PMP now. It consists agile part and it consists predictive. So everything is included in it. So we will try to cover as much as possible in this journey of process. Let me just give you the brief description of agile, what you need to know about the agile for the journey of process to choose and when to choose those life cycles. We have basically 4 major life cycle. I'm gonna discuss them and you can decide which life cycle to use when. Okay. So we are going to see on the changes. Number, how the changes are handled. Is the change very low in the project or is the change very high in the project? If the changes are very low, then you will use which project. If the changes are very high, then how you are going to use it. Then the second thing is delivery. How the delivery is going to give. Are we going to get delivery in one part or are we going to get delivery in multiple parts? We can say one part and 10, or we can say low parts and high. So we are going to have a graph from this, and from there we are going to decide how to use and which type of life cycle to use. So PMI basically in the ATP material and even in the Agile guide use Stacy diagram to explain this thing. So I'm gonna use the graph between the things I have extracted from the Stacy diagram in my own words. So see if it works for you and if you understand which life cycle to use, when to use. So I'm gonna put changes here, low changes, high changes, and delivery here. If you are going to get delivery in one go, so this will be there, delivery in many go, so delivery will be there. So let's work with when changes are very low. When changes are very low, like there is no practically change and you get in one delivery, which type of life cycle can this be? Or working in the other way, when to use predictive life cycle. So predictive is basically all about plan. We have a fixed plan, the plan is fixed, the work is fixed, you are making a house. House is a good example of predictive. You know how many rooms should be there and you know how many washrooms should be there, kitchen should be there. You don't want to change something. Once the plan is approved, design is approved, you go and work and deliver it. And now let's talk about, like we know that we don't want changes in that. How do we want a delivery? So if we put changes on house, so house is an example of predictive plan deliver. So if we changes are very low, how do we want to have a delivery of the house? Do you want to have a lot of changes in the house? No. We want that delivery to be on one go. Once the house is completed, then we want to have it. Do you want to shift while the foundation is being done, while the paint is being done? No, we don't want that. We want delivery at one go and we don't want any changes. So house is a classical example. So predictive is used. Predictive or an example of a house. We use predictive or a house where there are no changes in the project. When the project has no change whatsoever in it, we use predictive life cycle in there. Let's look at iterative. Now, in iterative cycle, how do we work basically? We are producing things in a repetition and we are producing it in repetition. Let's say we are making a prototype of a car prototype we are making. We make a prototype, we show the customer says no, this is not good, change this thing, maybe change the glasses, maybe change this thing. Let's say I'm making this AirPods, so I bring that design maybe in a blue color, the customer says no, I want in a white. then the customer says, please change this button, this is not good, this is not good. They keep on changing, we are keep on having iteration. So changes, if we talk about changes from low to high, the changes are very high. But how do we give delivery in that? Once it is ready, once it is approved, we give delivery in one go. So changes are high, but delivery is very low. Delivery is only one go. So changes will fall here, delivery will fall here. So then we have this iterative cycle. I can say that prototype falls here, iterative life cycle. Example I use of airports. Okay, once you make a new prototype, of course, when it becomes more, it goes back to the production stage. Now let's work with the incremental life cycle. Okay, let me put it here. Incremental life cycle. Oh, I have this. So in increments, how you are giving delivery? You are giving delivery parts by parts by parts. So if we talk about the delivery is very high. We are giving in multiple parts, like we are moving these journeys videos parts by parts by parts. But how the changes are working? Changes, once we have decided, changes are very low to this thing. For example, a learning course, just like this YouTube learning course. So incremental delivery is in parts by parts, delivery is very high, the delivery can in multiple parts, but changes are very low. So incremental basically comes here. Incremental delivery, you can say that e-learning course, like this journey videos, e-learning course comes here. Okay, now if your project have high change and you want the delivery in multiple parts, then you use agile. So one of the good example of agile is software updates of mobile or anything else. You get delivery in parts. You get a software, after a few days you get updated. So it's incremental in itself. The changes are there, and it is basically you are keep multiple deliveries. Like changes are there and deliveries in multiple way. So agile life cycle. That's why we say that agile gets the best of iterative and gets the best of incremental. Now iterative, incremental, agile, all these three are called adaptive, because to some extent there can be change driven. In between this, there is a word of, let me use red marker, hybrid. There is a word of hybrid life cycle. Now hybrid can be a combination of any of these. Okay, agile itself is a hybrid. It's a combination of iterative and incremental. And normally we have a combination of predictive plus agile, then hybrid. It can be in any way. First, like you do everything, planning, execution in predictive way, and at the end you use agile in a little way. Okay, or you use agile and predictive together, or you can use them parts by parts, or you use entire agile and a little bit of portion in predictive. Hey, this happens in most of the agile project. We do all the processing in agile and we do most of the procurement in the predictive part. So you can have a combination of anything. So that's all about life cycle. I hope this video is clear and this makes sense about when to use which type of life cycle. Once you have decided the type of life cycle, then we move journey of process. We already knew that we need to start from to understand which type of life cycle is to use. If we used agile life cycle, I highly recommend. We have selected agile. So now we need to know what is agile, what you need to know about the agile for the journey of process. Then we will move to the predictive part and what are the things we need to work on that. So in agile, the most important thing is all the requirements are collected in product backlog. So product backlog is a document in which all the requirements are collected. Product owner is a person who collects all the requirements in the forms of user stories. That is syntax of, as a user I want to do this so that I can do that. So in the form of user stories, all the requirements are collected in the product backlog. Once all the requirements are collected in the product backlog, let's say these are the user stories A, B, C, D, E. The product owner goes back to the stakeholders and prioritize these user stories. They may use techniques like Moscow, what are the must requirement, should requirement, could requirement, would likely to requirement, 100 points. Like they will give each stakeholders 100 points, and at the end they will calculate which user stories have more points, and that story will become the number one priority. Actually, they are prioritizing high value and high risk, which is the highest thing there. Okay, so we get the 100-point door to voting, multi-criteria metrics, all those things. The purpose is that we prioritize the user stories. Once that is done, then the team comes in the sprint planning, especially in the sprint 0, they come and they put all the user story as story points on it. So what is story points? Story point is the effort required to complete a user story. Effort required to complete the user story. Now, agile estimations are lightweight estimation. We can use 3 techniques for that. Ideal days. Okay. Now, since it is ideal days, ideal hours, we know that actual work will always be more than the ideal. We are saying that let's say it will take 40 ideal hours. We are assuming in 40 hours we will not take any unofficial call, we will not go to washroom, we will not take food and those things. So this means we actually plan to fail. So ideal days always take more time. So we have another estimation technique, affinity estimation technique. Now affinity estimation technique is really more of a relative estimation. We compare the estimations. We use t-shirt sizing. Now we cannot quantify the user stories. We compare them with other. We say that okay, this is a small t-shirt size, it's a small user story. This is a medium, large, XL, double XL. One thing we know, one thing the team knows, that the large user story must have more effort than medium and then small, and so goes XL. You can use t-shirt sizing. In US they use dog size. You can also consider this is a cycle, this is a motorbike, this is a car, this is a bus user story, this is an aeroplane, and this is a train. The purpose is to have a relative estimation in that. So affinity estimation. The third type estimation is basically we use Fibonacci series. Okay, in Fibonacci series, what do we say? Basically, first Fibonacci series: 1 plus 1 2, 2 plus 1 3, 3 plus 2 5, 5 plus 3 8. We say that as user stories are increasing, their effort are increasing in incremental level, not in a sequential level, a linear level. They are increasing in incremental level. So we use these 3 techniques to assign story points. Once we have assigned story point, most of the time the team members have conflict. What should be the story point? The team must have consensus. So in order to reach consensus in these, whatever the techniques you are using, we use planning poker. Okay, we use planning poker. In planning poker, basically what happens, the scrum master facilitates the session and he counts from 1 to 3. Each team member take out what he thinks should be the story point: 1 2 3 5 8 13. And let's say 2 people have a conflict on the user story, then they give their opinion. Why do they think this should be the story point? Why do they think this is the story point? Then they go round 2, round 3, round 4 unless they achieve consensus. Planning poker is a very effective technique, but there is a downside to the planning poker technique. The downside to the planning poker technique is this: whenever you are using a planning poker technique, if you have highest paid person in the office, in that team, or you have a senior person, so whenever after the round 1, people will try to move towards what he said. They think that he must have said the right thing, so they will try to move towards him or her in that arena. So this will decrease the effectiveness of process. So instead of planning poker, we can also use wide band Delphi. And the purpose of wideband Delphi is also to achieve the consensus of the story point. Now in this technique, the Scrum Master goes to each team member in secretly way, ask them, hey, why do you think this should be the story point? And then he changed the story points. Like he asked them, okay, he said this is the reason. You take that reason, go back to the team member one, and then he basically act as a facilitator in between, a bridge in between, and try to reach the consensus without other party knowing what the other party has said. So in this way he reached the consensus. The purpose is to get the story point. So let's say A got 8 story point, B got 13 story point, C 5, D 2, E 6. Okay, and now in the sprint planning meeting, this is product backlog. In the sprint planning meeting, team is preparing sprint backlog. It's a product backlog. Sprint backlog is for that current sprint. So sprint is basically a duration that can be 1 to 4 weeks. Sprint is a duration that can be 1 to 4 weeks. Normally it's 2 weeks. So we decide in the start and we take the same time. Let's say we have a 2-week sprint. The development team and the Scrum Master, again act as a facilitator in a sprint planning meeting. Okay, they decide what would be our estimated velocity. Velocity is the number of story points you can do in one sprint. Okay, so let's say they said our estimated velocity will be 15 story points. Very important thing. It's the team who is saying that what should be their story points, how much story points they can do. Yes, there can be a agreement, there can be a discussion within a product backlog, but it's the team decision that is considered as a final how much story points they can do. Now this is high value high risk, arranged as a high value high risk. They said that we can take 15 story point, so we will take A, that is 8 story point. We cannot take B, we will take C. Okay, 8 plus 5 13, so we can 8 plus 5 13, we can take D. Okay, we cannot take E because we already have 15 story point. So very important thing, although B is a high value high risk item, but A is number one, it goes there. We cannot take more story points, so we'll leave it here. Since it is important to understand, when you are working in sprints, you cannot do half work. In agile, there is nothing like 99% of the work, 95% of the work. Agile is always 100% of the work. So we have to complete the 100% of the work of the user stories. So we cannot take this thing, we know it will not be completed. So once the sprint backlog is ready, we share the sprint goal with the stakeholders, sponsors, whoever it is. Product owner also agreed this, and then we start working on it for we have 2 weeks, so we start working on 2 weeks. Now once we are working on it, we have daily stand-up. It is called as daily stand-up, daily scrum, depending upon the what terminology are you using, iteration. Like if we use the term sprint or if we use the term iteration, it means the same thing. Sprint backlog, iteration backlog, sprint meeting, same thing. Daily stand-up, daily scrum. We have Scrum Master here, we have team here. They are the person who must be there. If the product owner wants to come, he can come. This is a meeting for the team, by the team. You can also consider this more of a status meeting. We have 3 questions here, very important 3 questions. What have you done yesterday? Okay, what we did yesterday, what we are going to do today. Is there any impediment or roadblock? Impediment, roadblock, risk, all those things. So the duration for this meeting is 15 minutes, same place, same location. Same place, same location, same timing. So 15-minute daily. Let's say there's an impediment or roadblock that need to be resolved. You want to discuss a particular thing. You can have a follow-up meeting. You will not discuss anything in detail. We try to have this meeting in a co-located area, and in agile, basically we work in a co-located environment. Or at least we try to work in a co-located environment so that we can work in the best possible way. Okay, so that we can have osmotic communication, Osmotic communication is more of a natural communication. If you and I are sitting at one place, I'm talking to someone on the phone, you overheard it. That's osmotic communication, natural flow of the communication. So, osmotic communication. Now we also have in the common area caves and common. Caves is basically a semi-cubical or a partial. If you want to do some work where you will not be disturbed, then you go to your caves. And common is a normal area where everyone can work, and that's that area. Caves and common. Normally it is in between the 10 meter or 33 feet. Okay. Some of the agile concept while you are working with that team is important to understand. In agile we have 7 plus minus 2 team member. Teams are cross functional. We have cross functional team. We try to get the cross functional team. The team are self decided, self emergent. We have a servant leadership mentality here. Like scrum master is a servant leader. He is helping the people to provide the food, water. He is there shielding them from impediment. He does not let anything to get past to it. So a very important thing in here. So this is important that we also have T-type leadership. We have I-type people who are master in one field. Then we have simple type of leadership that a person knows everything but does not detail. P-type are a person who are master of in one field but they also have knowledge of other field. So we need a cross-functional team in agile. Some of the concepts in agile. Okay, so then we move. We keep on working, keep on working, keep on working. This is in Scrum. This is more of a Scrum framework. So then we have sprint review. Okay. Sprint review is more of a product. Here we give product demo. What have we completed so far? What are the things that we have completed so far? We show it to the customer. Whatever the user stories. Now, before going to sprint review, we have our own checklist. We want to make sure that all the things are done, and then the team also, and then the product owner or sponsors, they also have their own acceptance criteria. So you need to make sure that both things match. Your checklist is done. Everything in the checklist must, like, this must be in the product, this must be in the product, this must be in the product, and of course those user stories help you, because user stories works in 3C. You write them on card for easy working. There's a conversation on this, and there's a confirmation criteria on the user stories. And user stories follow also the acronym of INVEST. They are independent. Like one user story does not depend on other user story. You can negotiate them. They must provide value. They must be small that they can be completed in a sprint, and they must be testable. If user stories are large, we call them epic. You break down the user stories so that you can complete in a sprint. So in sprint review, product owner, sponsor, everyone comes there. You show them what you have completed so far, what is in the product backlog. They check it from their acceptance criteria. Okay, if they accept your user story, it goes into the release plan, it goes into the future, it gets accepted. If it gets rejected, it goes back into the product backlog. If a user story is rejected, or if a user story is not completed, it goes back into the product backlog. So very, very important thing. User story is rejected or it is not completed 99%, it goes back to the product backlog. If the customer wants to add new requirement into it, the customer can add new requirement at this step. At this step they can add new requirement, and we have a product backlog increment. We basically do refinement of product backlog, that is called grooming of product backlog. What is grooming of product backlog? At the sprint review, even after the first sprint review, we basically review the product again. We reprioritize the product backlog. Maybe a new requirement is there, maybe some are rejected user stories, and we need to see where does their priority goes. So we reprioritize the product backlog. This reprioritization is called as grooming of product backlog. Okay, and once this increment has completed, the things that has been completed we call as product increment. We got product backlog, sprint backlog, and third document as product increment. Increment in the products one by one. Okay, and then we work. Then once this is done, then the team sit together to do sprint retrospective. Sprint retrospective is a lesson learned workshop. sprint retrospective is more of a lesson learned workshop. In the sprint retrospective, we see what have we done. We try to get improvements. We do the root cause analysis and we suggest what are the improvements that can be implemented in the next sprint. It has 5 stages. Set the stage. You set the stage. Okay, here the team is certain stage. What can be expected? How long is going to be? What is expected of this retrospective? Then we gather data. We gather the data around the entire sprint so that we can do the root cause analysis. And then third, we generate insights. That is, we do the root cause analysis. In the 4th step, we decide what to do. We decide 1 or 2 improvements, like it has a format, what we should do more of, what we should do less of, what we should start doing, what should we do stop doing. And then finally we close the retrospective. We thank everyone and all, and everyone goes back to their work. So this is the framework of the Scrum. If you can look at this, from product backlog, sprint backlog, then daily stand-up, 3 questions, sprint review, sprint retrospective. If you know this thing, you know Scrum, and you know Scrum is a lightweight. Daily stand-up, the purpose of daily stand-up is to inspect and adopt, and this is one of the fundamentals of Scrum to transparency, inspection, adoption. This is the very important part for the PMP, especially for the agile portion. Take a back on the process. So since this is a journey of process, in process we have decided the life cycle, we have made the project charter, and we have made the stakeholder register. Remember this thing, project charter is done, then stakeholder register is done, then you have decided the life cycle. Let's say the life cycle is now predictive one, then we make the project management plan. So in project management plan, all the journeys come into play. In process, each and everything will come to play in it. Okay? Stakeholder, communication, risk, resource, quality, schedule, cost. So all the 10 domains will come here, and we need to watch all the journeys. I highly recommend you watched all the journeys which we have already completed from all the topics. That will give you some more context on the process. Okay, let's see. I'll go with the initiation, planning, execution domains in order to work and understand it. So we have selected the process. We have selected the predictive life cycle. So we go with the stakeholder register is done. So we start making the stakeholder management plan. Stakeholder management plan or stakeholder engagement plan is done to see all the strategies that are used to satisfy the stakeholders. In addition to that, we make communication management plan. Communication management plan is all about how to communicate throughout the project, how to communicate with the stakeholder, and how to communicate between the resource. Very important thing, these 3 things are already covered in the people domain also, but they again come in the process domain. So don't be worried about that. If you get like 60 to 70% questions, you will get in the PMP exam regarding these 3 topics, because they are overarching towards the people area as well as towards the process area. So once this is done, then you move towards identifying the risk. So identifying risk is any event that can be uncertain. It can have a positive effect or a negative effect on the project objective. You make a risk management plan. You make a risk management plan, how to handle the risk, how to identify the risk, how to plan it, track it, all those things. And here you also see what is your organization risk averse, risk seeker, risk neutral, which type of your organization is, what is your risk appetite, how we can work in that. So we also link that in this thing. Then we start to identify the risk. We use various tools and techniques to identify the risk. I highly recommend that you watch Journey of Risk before as a link video to this. I'll put it in the link. So watch Journey of Risk, you identify the risk, put all the risk in risk register, you get risk register, risk report. Risk register is for throughout the project, risk report is just only for that particular meeting. So once all the risks are in the risk register, then you rank them first qualitatively, low, medium, high. Then if you need it quantitatively, giving a number of the risk, you go to the what's the quantitative of the risk. Once that is done, then you plan for plan the risk response. So you have positive risk, opportunity, negative risk. You have strategies for negative, avoid, mitigate, and transfer, positive, exploit, enhance, share. Then you have active acceptance and passive acceptance, and then you have escalate. So you use all the strategies according to the your thing. Once the plan is approved, now this is very important. Once the risk plan is approved, most of the time it gets updates. It produces updates to all other plans. All plans are interlinked, but risk has a specific importance since the risk has been identified, and now all the plans are going in parallel. Actually, I'm going one by one, but all plans are being made. Scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource, all are being made in parallel. So once the risk plan get updated, all the plans will be updated to correspond that particular risk of the projects. So you update the plan, then you implement the risk response. Risk owner and risk action owner implemented when a trigger act. So once a risk has occurred, you see what are the residual risks, what are the secondary risks. You do risk audit, you do risk audit and risk review meeting to handle those risks. You have a burn down graph in agile to see those risks and how those risks has been handled. Sorry. So this is all about risk management. Okay. Then we go to the next thing. Next is basically you plan for quality. You make a quality management plan by benchmarking the quality standards which the customer has agreed. You can have ISO standards, your own standard, whatever the standards you have, you benchmark them. You calculate the cost of quality, how much the cost of the quality will be for cost of conformance, producing a quality product, cost of non-conformance, the cost that you will have to pay because of non-quality product or a bad product. Okay, so you also make quality metrics, more of a KPI metrics, which things you are going to measure. Then you manage quality or implement quality management plan. Make sure that quality plan is implemented. The deliverables that are being produced, they are produced according to the quality plan. Actually, while in execution, the quality team goes and check through checklist, check sheets to control chart whether the deliverables being produced are within the quality or not. We do the audit of the process to check the effectiveness of the quality management plan. Are we following that thing or not? Once that is done, this is all about preventive action. We go towards the control quality. A very important thing in control quality, since this quality product being produced, now the deliverables that are produced come to the quality team. They review that deliverable. If that deliverable satisfy the customer, that's a good thing. If deliverable satisfy the quality team, very important, to the customer, my mistake. If the deliverables are according to quality management plan, internally the team says the deliverables get verified deliverables. Then these deliverables basically go to the customer, validate scope and become accepted deliverable. You use checklist, scatter diagram to find the correlation. You use Pareto if there are defects to rank the defect, 20-80 principle, what are the major defects, and you use flowchart to see the sequence of the processes. So important things in this quality management plan. Once the quality is being done, you see I am going towards the entire journey, but the plans are being made, then they are executed, then you are monitoring them. The first step is plan is being made, then it is executed, then you check them. Then if we move towards the procurement, as we are buying the procurement, but actually let's go to the scope schedule. And in basically now you need to make 3 baselines. So first we collect the requirement using the requirement management plan. We collect all the requirements through focus group, prototype, facilitated workshop, through all the tools of the requirement, and we make requirement documentation and requirement traceability metrics, having all the requirements inside them. Hey guys, I just actually uploaded a video yesterday of how 3 baselines in detail. You can watch also that or journey of these 3 baselines. requirement documentation, requirement traceability. Then we put the filter of scope on it, which things are in the scope or which things are not in the scope. We make project scope statement. Then we make WBS, break down the structure. WBS dictionary plus approved project scope statement is called scope baseline. You see, the lowest part of the WBS is called work package. So then we move toward the schedule. Baseline, we make schedule management plan. So once the schedule management plan is done, approved, we divide the work package into activity list, activity attributes, milestone list. We see what are the dependencies between those activities, what are the mandatory dependencies, discretionary dependencies, what are the leads and lags. So what are the relationship, finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, all the relationship we check between those basically activities. And then we make a critical path. We get a critical path that becomes schedule baseline. If you want to compress your schedule, we have two techniques: fast tracking and crashing. Fast tracking is making activities in parallel, and crashing is adding more resource. The negative effect of fast tracking is basically once you do fast track, it is there a risk of rework. Like I am moving in fast tracking, I am summarizing the entire thing, so I am mixing few things. The same thing happens. Crashing is adding a resource, the rework gets increased. There is a chance of rework. We also have resource optimization technique, resource leveling, in which all resources are optimized, but the schedule get increased. If we don't want to increase the schedule, we do resource smoothing. Once that is done, then you make cost management plan. Cost management plan tells which type of currency to use, how to use that currency. So you use cost management plan to see how you are going to finance the project. What is funding limit reconciliation? You use analogous estimation, parametric 3-point estimation, and bottom-up estimation, cost aggregation to make cost baseline. And cost baseline includes contingency reserves, whereas project budget includes cost baseline plus management reserves in it. Then you check the schedule variance and cost variance through their earned value calculation. Very important is CPI, SPI. If they are greater than 0 or greater than 1, that's a good thing. If it is greater than 0, greater than 1, that's a good thing. If they are less than 1, bad thing. On 0, okay thing. So that's how 3 baselines are done in a quick way. I hope that makes sense. And if you want the detail of it, of course, I am linking all the journeys in the description. You can watch all the journeys. Here I'm making a linkage of all the processes, how they are linked. Then next is procurement. Okay, you look for the procurement, whether you want to make or buy. Once you have decided that you want to buy, you decide the source selection criteria. Once you have solved your source selection criteria, you select your type of contract. Depending requirements are fixed or not fixed. Fixed price contract, fixed price incentive fee, fixed price economic price adjustment, cost reimbursement, cost plus incentive fee, close plus award fee, or time and material. To decide your contract, you set the bidding document through procurement statement of work. Okay. Make or buy, and source selection criteria, then contract. Once that is done, then you make procurement statement of work. Okay, and bidding documents. Once the bid comes, you have a bidder conference. You shortlist sellers. Okay, you write agreement with them. Very important thing. Project manager does not discuss anything according to the cost. We have procurement manager with that. Once agreement is done, we get the delivery. We do the inspection. Okay, if inspection is approved, we close the procurement. If there is a problem in the deliverable, we have a conflict here. We go to the conflict management. We try to do collaboration. If we are able to do collaboration, good. Close the procurement. If no, then we have a alternate dispute resolution. We get third party, and if we don't get resolution, we go to the contract. We go to the court. So this is basically the entire processes in a summary form. So process are basically a combinations of agile and predictive, and I try to give the entire summary in the minimum possible time. But I highly recommend you also watch all the link journeys videos to make it more sense. So we are done with the journey of people, process, business environment, and individual areas in all those domains. I hope this makes sense. Actually, you have the entire PMP course with you online. If you want to do it yourself, good, you have everything on YouTube. If you want our help, you can join our program by contacting us at number given in the below description. And when you clear the PMP, do tell me. I would love to record your journey and share it with others. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, do click that subscription button and share these videos to others so that they can become certified PMP. Thank you. Bye bye.